you handle the issue about being invited to her church? Would you be inclined to go? Would you be politely decline? Keep welcoming them?
You want to answer that?
I go to church myself. You can come to my church.
I'm just curious.
I mean,
but
I'm
as a
saying.
provider, I'm just saying how.
Oftentimes, if you, well, she's inviting you
Mhm.
because she's feeling closer to him.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the culture, you know. But also to find out if you go to church. So there's two kind of,
She has two motives, maybe.
two motives in that
Maybe.
one question. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. See, one of the things that happens a lot, at least it has in my 20 years of working with people that I work with, they also always want to know my standing. And when I'm sending them somewhere, I want to make sure that I'm connecting them to something that's going to be a good fit for them. I'm not going to send them to somebody that, for example, a person that's in recovery, drugs and alcohol, for example, but they have a strong faith-based center from themselves. I'm not going to send them to a program that won't allow, that's really broken into not letting them pray or whatever, even though I agree that they need to get another found. Evidently, that somewhere there's a breakdown. But that's not for me to make that job. I need to find them the best fit. So sometimes if he would have said, he politely said, okay, that might, but he may never come.
Right.
But he was gracious enough to be open to the idea of, oh yeah, that sounds good. But he may never come. Doesn't mean that I take it personal. I just say, oh, he's not an atheist across the table from me or something like that. And maybe he is.
Yeah.
But I need to know that, because if I'm talking about Jesus Christ and and then I realize, oh, he may be. I don't believe. Then that might be my barrier automatically, and I'm not coming back.
Right.
So I need to know kind of like who he is or what he, even if he doesn't necessarily believe what I believe, I need to know that he believes. I mentioned it on several occasions about my music. I go to church, what soothes my soul. So when he develops his plan, or when we work on a plan together, which is going to be our next, he's got to know what to help me to move me through. What some things that help me get through the depression. So that'll help me stop drinking, because if I'm really doing what I'm going to church and whatever, maybe my drinking is not going to be a part of that. My cognac, I'm just saying, I don't know. But I'm just saying, I'm not going into that yet, but I'm just saying, he's getting a history and some foundation to work with, and also see if I'm telling the other people the same thing. This group of people that are now going to help me with my care.
It's important what you said about the faith piece in terms of if you believe that he didn't believe at all,
Right.
that you wouldn't come back.
Right. And that's a lot.
It's important for us as providers to understand that, and you might want to transfer that case to somebody who does believe. Nothing wrong with that, because the person is not going to get the help if they think that you don't know the Lord and they've been reared with that, because they think you don't know what you're talking about.
And I just give you a quick example with I was doing teen pregnancy prevention, and in high schools with predominantly African American students, pregnant women, young women, that are parenting their kids and they're in school. My approach with this group, when I went to Linwood, was predominantly Latino young moms that are rearing their babies with the husband's family that didn't have the same kind of, I don't want to say empowerment, but the same kind of force that the African American young women did that they had over here. So my technique had to change, because I'm working with a whole different element and spiritual foundation and generational relationships that didn't happen in this sector. So you have to kind of know who, and I had to bring along somebody else with me that could culturally relate, because even as a woman, I didn't relate to you can't breastfeed your baby because his mama said something. For me, it was like, this is my baby, in my culture, what you talking, so I can understand that I need to talk to somebody that is in that, and then they can come along. So sometimes you need to learn that. And that's what this collaborative care is talking about. How do we begin to infuse this family and bring them together and bring the services together so that this person gets better and match them well. So that's what.
I might follow up because it sounds like sounds like we raised some important issues, but it was kind of an accident. I'll rephrase a question. Suppose the suggestion had been to come to the school carnival. I was just thinking about with a provider, how, like, just more of a boundary issue. I'm just curious, as a provider, how do you navigate those kinds of, you get invited to the school carnival, and you could, I thought you handled it nicely there in a sort of, as Felipe was saying, kind of an ambiguous way. It wasn't clear you were going or not. You reacted positively, but I don't know. I'm just curious from the provider vantage point how you navigate those kinds of issues.
Well, really what I try to do is be open and really appreciative, because that's telling me that she's beginning to trust me. She's inviting me into her life. But because of some boundaries that I want to make sure we maintain so I can continue to help her, I've actually never gone to church with anyone. I mean, not that I didn't want to, but just because to try to keep that separate. I actually haven't been to anyone's school carnival. I do bump into people from time to time, and if they talk to me and they're sort of open about who I am, then yeah, sure, I talk to them. But I've had other people who've ignored me and been perfectly happy to not acknowledge them. So,
Can I add that to that? I think it also goes back to being like genuine. Hopefully, as like a caseworker or I'm MFT, I talk to my clients as if they are also like peers,
right.
So usually like reading questions and all that stuff, I don't do that because I wouldn't want someone to do it to me. It's just a part of being genuine, and it goes back to what you said at the beginning when you're talking about, the phone interview and all that stuff. You want to make a person have a good, impression and all that stuff. So I think it's appropriate to say, you know what, thank you for the invitation. Like, I'm grateful for that. Will you tell me how it went? Or I hope you enjoy yourself. Yeah. There's ways to say I can't go without being rude and or putting yourself apart.
Sure.
I've also been asked to go to places, and I'm not a provider or care manager, I'm usually just an interviewer, but in the sense of building rapport, like this woman wanted me to come to her karaoke night on Skid Row to support her as she was getting up to sing with the other people in the room, and so I went, and then we did the interview after she was done with karaoke, and it was a great interview, and she appreciated that I came to see her. I don't know if I would have gone to her church necessarily, but unless she was in the choir and she was singing in the choir and she wanted support in that sense. But boundaries, it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.